Hey there, my name's Nathan. I'm one of the builders here at 3612 Ida Belle Lane. We're so glad that you're here checking out the house. We hope you like everything that you see, but I wanted to make sure that you didn't miss the crawl space because this is a pretty special part of this building that I wanted to make sure that you knew about because there's a lot going on down here that's actually going to affect your experience living here, even though pretty much all these systems are going to stay out of sight and out of mind for you. So let's get into it. The biggest thing that you'll notice is this shiny stuff on the wall behind me. All that pretty white plastic that we've got everywhere that's all sealed up as a sealed vapor barrier. But what this is doing is bringing this crawl space into the conditioned space of the house. This is called a conditioned crawl space. It's different than the one that you probably have now or have had before, where you've got vents in the walls and fluffy insulation up here in the floor system, and some cheap plastic that's been just kind of laid out over the dirt. If you've had experience with those, you know that they tend to get really dank and musty over time. They tend to start attracting pests after a while, and they're just not really successful in our particular climate here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. So I greatly prefer this system. It stays cleaner, it stays drier, it stays healthier, it's more durable for the life of the building, and it's just better. It's the way we should be building in our part of the world here. Now, what this does for us is it brings the entire ducts and heat and air system into conditioned space, which is nice because it's now occupying the same space that it's conditioning, right? Like, we're not trying to air condition the house with a unit that's up in a hot attic. We're not trying to heat the house with a unit that's in a cold, drafty foundation. It's subject to the same temperatures and environment that you are up there in the living space. So that's going to result in longer equipment life, better energy efficiency, and a happier service technician when he comes to service this thing once a year, which I think is probably going to make him do a better job. So that's all really great. The other thing that we've got going on in here that I wanted to make sure that you understand about is this box behind me here with all the ducts coming out of it. This thing is, well, the technical term is energy recovery ventilator, but you can think of it as a fresh air system. This thing does a couple of really cool things for us here. So I gotta tell you that this is a really airtight building. We did that on purpose. You'll hear it said often that buildings need to breathe. I don't disagree with that, but it's important to understand what we really mean when we say that. What we mean by that is, like, you'll probably hear somebody say, "Oh, you can get a house too tight." Well, that's true if you haven't factored in all of the other systems in the house that have to adapt to that airtightness. So what we really mean when we say a house needs to breathe is that it needs to dry. We don't want things getting wet and staying wet. If they get wet, we want them to dry out, or we want them not to get wet in the first place, right? That's what leads to problems. So we've taken some great pains on this house to go along with that airtightness to ensure that dryability is maintained, or non-wetting in the first place is achieved. So there's a lot of water flashing details that I can talk about in another video. There's a drainage system around the perimeter that I can talk about in another video. But just rest assured that we've taken a lot of effort to make sure that the house either stays dry or dries out if it gets wet in critical places. So airtightness is okay here. Now, what you don't want with an airtight building is like stagnation of the air indoors. We need fresh air. Air is like a fluid. It's like, earth is a fishbowl, and air needs to be, recycled and treated, which is what our trees do. But here in this house, that's what this thing is doing. This is going to pull fresh air in from outside, and it's going to distribute it throughout the whole house. It comes in through a filter, it's preconditioned, which I'll explain in a minute, and then it's pipes into the return side of the heat and air system, from which point it gets sent into all the different rooms in the house. So we got fresh air delivered everywhere. At the same time, it's going to be extracting stale air from the house and blowing it back outside. So we're not putting the house under suction, we're not putting the house under pressure, it's balanced, okay? So What's cool about this thing though, and why we call it an energy recovery ventilator, is that while it's ventilating, it's recovering energy. What do I mean by that? There's a core inside here, okay? Now, we talked about air coming in and air going out. That means there's two air streams at play inside this box. Both of those air streams pass through a core in the center, which allows them to cross each other without mixing, okay? Now, we don't want them to mix because we want the stale air gone and we want the fresh air in. But there are things in that stale air that we might want to keep, like the heat or cool that we've paid for in the summer or the winter time. There's things in the outside air that we don't really want to come in. Like right now it's summertime, I don't want all that humidity from outside coming and overloading the system and making the house muggy. We don't want that. And so that crossing without mixing thing allows that heat to exchange, and it allows most, not all, but most of that humidity to exchange as well. That's really cool. So we're providing fresh, preconditioned air to the house while we're pulling the stale air out. Now, one other thing I want to mention about that is where we're pulling that stale air from. There are 3 primary locations that have concealed holes in the floor where air from the house is going to be dropping down into this crawl space on its way to this ERV before it gets sent outdoors. And that is beneath each bath vanity, and it's also underneath the trash pull out in the kitchen island. If you pull that trash bin thing out from the left hand of the kitchen sink, you'll look behind there and you'll see there's a little vent in the floor. That's connected to this crawl space. So as this ventilator sucks air out of the crawl space, we're putting the crawl space under suction, and the air that's relieving that suction is coming down from the house, and it's passing through both bathrooms, and it's passing through the trash pull out in the kitchen. And the intent behind this concept, and I hope it works for you, is that you should almost rarely, if ever, smell your trash or smell your bathrooms elsewhere in the house. And as that air from the house passes through the crawl space, that's how we achieve the conditioning of this zone to keep things from getting dank and musty down here, keeping this fresh, using that air from the house coming down before it's sucked into this thing and sent outdoors. So you've watched this video for 7.5 minutes now. Thank you if you've made it this far. I hope you understand and appreciate that. If you have any other questions about any of the other stuff we did here that's a little bit different than most new construction in our area, we're happy to get into as much detail as you want with that. We hope you like what you see here. We'll leave our contact information here for you in case you want to ask any more questions of us. I'm glad to get into it with you. Happy house hunting. Hope you like it. See you soon.